Hi, thank you for joining us.
Hi, Annette.
Hey, how are you? Clubhouse is acting so strangely lately. When I went to go on your profile, when I do go on somebody's profile or something, I end up it like kicks me out of the room and I got to navigate back into the room. It's acting so weird lately. I
Anyway,
know.
good evening, Annette. I just want to acknowledge some people. Yemisi is in the crowd. Let me tell you about her. She's someone I've known for over, gosh, are we talk? Yeah, I need to pull this girl up. Probably over 40 years. We went to school together back in Nigeria, so I know her very well. And of course, welcome to Islam, Wissam, Kim, and Lola Day as well. So I just wanted to say hello. I'm actually babysitting my nephew at the moment.
Oh, okay. How cool. So I've invited your friend up twice and somehow it's not working. I'm trying to bring you up. So I know. Oh my goodness. It's just so wonky today. It's so wonky. So I will keep trying. You might want to try going out and then coming back in. Sometimes that helps to bring you up on the stage because I've tried several. You know what? I'll make Stella moderator too, and you can try as well. I've tried a couple of times.
Okay, let me see if I can get her up. That's if she will actually come up. Well, we'll see. And hi
Go on.
Dawn.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm doing good. I wasn't sure where we were today, so it was like, okay, last resort, look on Clubhouse, and here we are.
I know. I popped on Twitter Spaces last week, and I was so lost, and I gave you wrong directions, and Lavinia came in with Momita, and Lavinia trained me. She gave me like the 10-minute Twitter Spaces training, so I'm all cool, and we can pop back there next week, and so I guess it's kind of Ladies' Day here, and so I want to say hello to Stella's friend. Stella and Dawn, you both know each other, and um, so thank you so much for joining us on the stage. Stella says you're amazing, so that's good enough for me. So
Yes, she is. So let me just quickly brief Dawn. Dawn, I was just telling Annette that Yemisi is someone I've known. We're going we're pushing on 40 years. We went to school together in Nigeria. So I just wanted, I just wanted her to come up and just say hey to us.
Wonderful. Welcome.
Yemisi, can you hear
yes,
us?
I can hear you.
There you
oh
are, my dear. Hello.
Hi. Hello, everyone.
hi,
Hi,
thank you,
Annette. Hi, Stella. Hi, Dawn, Islam, Wizam, Kim, and Loladi.
thank
Good
you
to
for
be here. And always
oh
good to be in Stella's presence, I must say. Yes, we come a very long way.
yes, I hear that. I am a huge Stella fan. I am lucky to be in collaborating with her, almost sometimes seems like almost every day of the week, and so it's always a treat. And I LinkedIn is such a thing. People talk about it, all the time. LinkedIn, and it's such it's such an interesting place to me. I think of it as a 24/7 sort of networking party. I've learned to think of it that way. And I am fairly active on LinkedIn, but not as active as my friend Stella. And Dawn, I think you're a little bit active, but you could be a little bit more active. Am I right?
Yes. I'm bowing my head in shame.
Well, so at least we're all laughing here. So, one of the things that I'd love to start chatting about is, some of the misconceptions, and I just had our lovely friend Lavinia was my guest on my LinkedIn live a little bit earlier today, and Stella knows her well, and it's such a treat. It was such a treat for me. We had so much fun together, and we were talking about some of the misconceptions about LinkedIn, and about people thinking that you need to be so-called LinkedIn trainers. There's so many of them out there, and Dawn, in our industry, there's like resume writers everywhere. One day they're selling insurance, and the next day they're a resume writer, and that happens with LinkedIn as well. There's so many LinkedIn trainers, and I think that's one of the misconceptions, though, the idea that, oh, you must post a certain number of days a week. And so what are your all thoughts on that?
If it's okay, I'll jump in.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So it's I always like to, and you've heard this so many times before. Sorry, Annette. It's sort of like you need to, if you need to have some constant chatter. You can't just have the lights on and no one's home. So it's a matter of getting out there and posting content, sharing content, engaging with other people, connecting with other people. It's not just something you will build it and they will come kind of scenario. We really have to nurture. I always like to use the term kind of like, this is your LinkedIn garden and you need to water it and tend to it so it will grow and thrive. But that is probably the best analogy for LinkedIn. You do need to make sure that you're nurturing those connections. And I mean, I don't post quite as much as I should, and there's lots of ways to post. You can create your own short posts. You can create a blog post, the long form post, or an article kind of situation, or you can just share content, videos, you name it. But there's all the other stuff where you're participating in groups and commenting on other people's posts and that kind of thing. So it doesn't have to be extensive, but it should show some kind of presence. That's the way I put it. This is Dawn. I'm done speaking.
Yeah, I love that idea, and I agree with you. I have people all the time telling me, "Oh, Annette, I see you everywhere on LinkedIn. Oh, you're everywhere on LinkedIn." And I'm not really everywhere on LinkedIn, but it's the commenting, where they see me commenting on other people's posts. And I will say, Stella, I am in awe that you are kind of one of those LinkedIn gurus. I mean, you really know how to. Um, provide great information and advice, but you always do it in such a way that it's very distinct to you. I could read a bunch of different posts and not see who wrote them, and I think I could probably pick yours out. And I think that's one of the reasons that your LinkedIn presence is, really, you have a big presence on LinkedIn. So can you talk a little bit about how you developed that?
Oh wow, Annette, I'll just bear with me 1 second.
Yes, your aunt duties call you. I get it.
Yeah. I'm like, I literally had to tell him I'll be 2 minutes. So just quickly, I think it really is a case of, the first thing is just being consistent on LinkedIn. If you're not going to commit to being consistent on LinkedIn, and knowing what your intentions are on LinkedIn, then you might not get a return on investment. And a return on investment could mean anything from return in investment in you trying to get a client, for example, or you trying to get a job. People have to know who you are before they invest any sort of time or even money on you, right? So this is where consistency is absolutely key on LinkedIn. The other sort of myth that people seem to have with regards to LinkedIn is that they need to put content out. It needs to have thousands and thousands of views and thousands of engagement. And I always say one view could be the game changer, because one view could be your potential employer who is looking for you to come and work in their organization, or two, it could it could be that person that is going to offer you that job. So those are the kind of things that you actually need to think about when you are on LinkedIn. Consistency and having a clear strategy in terms of what it is you need to put out in terms of content is also really, really important. I always say to people, being a LinkedIn success is not an overnight thing. People always see those of us who are doing relatively well on LinkedIn thinking, oh my gosh, they're doing so well. And this is some sort of overnight success. It isn't. Being on LinkedIn is playing the long game. Have a good strategy, and the rewards on LinkedIn are absolutely enormous.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for that. I appreciate it. And Dawn, I love that garden analogy. And we do big garden here every year, and it is important. I mean, the one day, or if you ignore it too many days, things kind of wilt and try to and sort of die off. So it is important. So I just want to say we have several people down in the audience. Please do come up and join us on the stage. We are a friendly group here, and please come up and either, if you have a question that we can help you with, or if you have something that you'd like to share, you are welcome to come up and join us. So, Dawn, what I was about to ask you is, what would be maybe a strategy in thinking of the LinkedIn in terms of being the garden? What would be maybe a little bit of a strategy that you could, impart to people to, give them sort of, it's always good to have a plan. So, do you have some tips that you can give in that form of kind of a strategy or plan for nurturing that garden of LinkedIn?
Well, yes, and as someone who's very guilty, um, I would say that sometimes we're all guilty of being time robbed of time, and so sometimes you just have to just actually schedule it in because it's really easy to kind of neglect it. I've been this year's been kind of a renewal of focusing on LinkedIn and blogging and things like that. So I actually put it on my calendar, so otherwise, things will overcome us, and we get that creep of everything else that goes around it. And then we're like, oh, yeah, I should have done that. And it's like, yes, you should have. So just simply putting it on your calendar and maybe spend, 15, 20 minutes on LinkedIn and find something to post or find something to comment on, just so that you have some kind of presence there. And again, it's keeping the lights on in your house here in someone's home. So that's some suggestions I would have.
Yeah, I hear that too. I've been actually I'm doing something this month where I am for the next few weeks I am monitoring where I spend my time. I'm actually trying to track it almost minute by minute every day and see where I'm spending my time because I need to fit in some me time. But one of the things that I find is an easy way to sort of do LinkedIn for me is to um, get up when I get up in the morning and I'm having my coffee, I'm scrolling through LinkedIn and I am just, commenting on posts, finding, interesting things and commenting on them. So, and one of the things that I've learned, and I titled this room "Secret Strategies to Get Noticed on LinkedIn," and I think that the strategies are not so secret. But the thing is, people can come into rooms like this, or you read posts on LinkedIn, excuse me, or you even work with a LinkedIn trainer, but it's all putting things into motion because, I can listen all day long to somebody telling me, different types of content to post, but if I'm not doing it, then it's not going to make any difference. Any strategies for, besides putting it in the calendar, do you have any strategies, Stella or Dawn, or and I'm sorry, I don't wish to butcher your name. Your
Yemisi, just call her Yemisi.
Yemisi. Okay. Any strategies, Yemisi, that you have also that you know, keep you on LinkedIn, you know, so it doesn't become like a chore. Any strategies for knowing now's the time and spending that time every day or every few days?
Visible as I should be, but I have listened to some tips from Stella, and I'm trying to follow those tips in terms of keeping up with what I post and not resharing. That I always remember, rather than to reshare, to actually post if if you want to post something from somebody else's page. But what I have noticed that has increased my visibility is the content, depending on what is going on. I am into equality, diversity, and inclusion and law enforcement. So my focus is always around that. And I find out that when I post things that raises awareness, it attracts a lot of traffic and conversation. So I wouldn't say I'm an expert when it comes to LinkedIn. I'm still crawling, I must say. So I don't know if anybody will find that useful, but it's sticking to what you know.
No, I love that. I thank you so much for sharing that. You know, we're all still, you know, I feel I'm certainly not an expert. I'm still, you know, crawling along myself and learning from other people, you know, every single day on Clubhouse or LinkedIn. But, you know, it is true. And there's one thing that you mentioned about not sharing. You know, when you're sharing other people's information, I think it doesn't necessarily help your voice, and I think that's something that you were saying there. What are your all thoughts about that?
I think there's a way to leverage other people's content if you're sharing it by you can actually make a comment on it, so you're connecting to the conversation versus just a flat out just share and no other comment. So it's a way to interject your own voice in there and maybe perspective or a thought or maybe a alternative viewpoint or something like that. So it's a great way to start a conversation versus just having a one-sided share. This is Dawn. I'm done speaking.
So you know, I find that as well. I try to, you know, write my. I do primarily put out my own content and not a lot of sharing. And there is something, you know, there. I find content everywhere too, and I love what you said about kind of writing what you know. I find content kind of everywhere. I mean, I'm watching a new series right now, and I think that's going to be, you know, it's about separating, dramatically separating your personal and work life, and you know, it's kind of this weird, twisty, crazy series, but it really made me think about about how much having, you know, separating the work and the personal life is. But the point of my rambling is the fact that that is going to be a post for me, and I see things everywhere that hopefully, you know, can work their way into being a post. And one of the things that I do is I do jot down notes, and I have a little voice recorder on my phone, and so if I'm thinking of something, I may, you know, say a few words and work out a voice draft, and then have it transcribed and sent to my, you know, sent to my email, because it's easier than starting with a blank page. So the roundabout way to my question is, where do you all find inspiration for your posts?
Okay, I can quickly jump into this one. I think, you know, what I do, and I always say this to people when I'm talking to clients with regards to their LinkedIn. I always say this: what works for you might not work for me, and vice versa. So, in terms of content, the way I always do it is this: I share my of course my professional life on LinkedIn because it's a professional platform. But with that, I also share the personal side of me. And there is a big distinction, and Valerie Nielsen always says this so articulately. There's a big distinction between sharing your personal life and sharing your private life on LinkedIn. But when you share a bit of your personal life, it kind of humanizes you outside of the workplace. So that's one thing to think about. And a lot of the time, a lot of the content that does really, really well on LinkedIn are those kind of like personal stories that other people can resonate with. Does that make sense? So that is another way in terms of thinking about what your LinkedIn strategy should be when it comes to it. Now, as we all know, there is a war going on in Ukraine, right? And there's a lot of talk about that. LinkedIn. Now, I work with a lot of job seekers, okay, who have to put content out, who have to apply for jobs. And I always say this on the issue of maybe Ukraine, for example, be very, very careful what your political opinions might, especially if you're looking for a job, maybe in corporate or wherever, because again, point of reference for potential employers. So they're going to go and obviously check out what kind of content you've been. So when it comes to the issue of,
We just lost you.
can you hear me now?
Yep, hear you now.
Sorry about that. So I'm just trying to say that even now, even within connections, people who are connected to each other, people who've been connected for a very, very long time, are actually now opposing each other, are literally fighting on LinkedIn because they have different views, they have different opinions about what is going on in Ukraine. And that's why I'm always very, very mindful of what it is I say with regarding whatever is going on in Ukraine. Does that make sense? Being divisive, being, having a strong political view, having strong religious convictions sometimes really doesn't do you a favor when you are trying to maybe look for a job, look for a potential client, because you've always got to think about your audience and how they are going to react to whatever content you're putting out there, because once it's out there, it's very difficult to take back. And in the cancel type culture that we live in now, we see it time and time again that I'm sorry, after you've said something really controversial, is just not going to kick it with everybody. So these are the kind of things people really need to think about before they go and put content out on LinkedIn. But as long as you don't break any terms of service um, that LinkedIn gives, then anything really and truly goes on LinkedIn in terms of content. You can put anything you like with regards to content, as long as you don't break LinkedIn's term of service. So I hope that makes sense, Annette.
It makes tremendous sense. It makes tremendous sense. And I hear you. You know, when I work with clients, I advise them not to be political on, on LinkedIn. And even though, as you had mentioned earlier, I have put the, Ukrainian flag in my LinkedIn profile, and which is kind of, my sort of quiet way of supporting it. It's not something that I'm going to be posting about or talking about or arguing with people about on LinkedIn. And I have my own personal reasons for doing that. But and while when I changed my LinkedIn profile background, my LinkedIn profile photo, it changes everywhere. But when you have content that you're putting out, it lives on forever.
Absolutely. And even the point of you putting your show of support through your profile picture. Again, and I'm not talking about you specifically, Annette. I'm just talking about other people now. again, if people are going to look at your LinkedIn profile, for example, and look at your look at your content, questions may be asked as to why you saw fit, or why you saw fit to support Ukraine, and you didn't do anything when there were the horrors and the atrocities going on in Afghanistan. There was no show of support for those people. There was no show of support for the people in Palestine. So again, people take very, very strongly to these kind of things, and it's those small things that really does have an impact in, for especially for those decision makers who are having to make choices as to whether or not you actually fit in their organization, for example, if you're a job seeker. Because again, it's one thing that everybody's doing that, and it doesn't detract the fact of the horrors going on in Ukraine. But again, for me, I would be a hypocrite right now if I did put the Ukrainian banner as a show of support for the Ukrainians, because I've never ever done it for anybody else. But it doesn't mean to say that I haven't supported the cause through donations or charity work or whatever it is. And that is exactly my point. You people inadvertently, we're talking about International Women's Day yesterday. We're talking about bias. We are sometimes the creators of bias by the small actions in your mind. A honorable action that you're taking is potentially creating a bias to somebody wanting to actually connect with you or chat with you or offer you that job. So again, I'm always coming from that perspective. This is what, this is why it's so important to have these kind of discussions and have you know just again show people, or tell people to really sit down and really have a good strategy when they're putting out content. Because when you put out content, as I said, it can have an impact on just one person. It doesn't need to have an impact on hundreds and thousands of people. I'll stop now because I know Dawn wants to come in with some points.
Oh, Stella, thank you so much for bringing that up. And I do have the Ukrainian flag on my personal Facebook profile because I have several friends over there. But I think you make a very valid point. Sometimes it's not so much what you support, but what you don't support or show support for. And there have been a lot of things that have happened, including the bombing in Yemen and everything there. So I think there has to be a conversation about this when it's a conflict that involves people of color or brown people versus people that are white. And there's been a lot bigger backlash with the Ukrainian one than what's happening, what Russia's doing to Ukraine, versus maybe some of the bombing runs that the US has been involved with in Yemen. And that's a full blown crisis. Somalia, there's the Rwandan wars, so on the greater African continent. So we have, that what you don't say can be as a big of a omission as what you do say, and I think we need to be cognizant about that. And I admit I'm learning right now. So I appreciate your thoughts and your statement, Stella, because you're just spot on as usual. Thank you.
Go ahead, Stella.
No, I was just applauding Dawn for to you next.
No, I think this is great, and we've kind of had this discussion between you and me, Stella, a bit before. So I hear that, and I agree with you. I agree with you both, and I think this is, while to some extent we're getting off a little bit on a tangent, but it is such a good lesson, because what you do on LinkedIn really affects you, whether it's your if you are a business person like the three of us, or if you are looking for a job, or certainly if you are working for an employer versus working for yourself. It's also something else that you need to be cognizant of. And I agree with you. Before we move on, I have to say I agree with you both, and I think with I know with me, part of it is it's just become a 24/7 thing that we're all aware of. And I have friends with family in Russia who are suffering right now due to this. So that's kind of my impetus of putting up the flag on my LinkedIn profile. But it is, and I agree with you also that there are so many other things going on, and we are not as aware of them. And I think some of that is just, people that, people that look like me. If I see people, countries, Europe, they see Ukraine, people that look like them. And so they are more aware of it. And, it's just become such a thing that we're all aware of right now. But I hear you, and there needs to be attention paid to a lot of these travesties that go on around the world. So, um, jumping back to LinkedIn, and some of the things that we've just been having a lot of talking about, discussion on what you do on LinkedIn, the content that you post, your LinkedIn profile photo or lack of one. Uh, all have an influence on people who are looking at your LinkedIn profile. And, if you are looking for a job and you send out a resume and the employer is interested in you, they are going to go to your LinkedIn profile. If I am a hiring manager and my friend Stella says, "Oh, you know what? I know this person, Dawn, and she would be great for that job," I'm going to go and look at Dawn's profile. So, and I recently read a few years ago, a career builder study found that 47% of employers who responded to that said if they look and they don't see a profile, even if they're interested, they might not even call the candidate. So it is so important. So now that we've talked about ways that can influence people, in a good or bad way, I guess, depending on what they're thinking, what are some things that people can do to get the message out? The whole idea of LinkedIn and branding, it's our reputation. So what are some ways to get out to people what you want them to know about you? Big question, I know.
I'll pop in. So I think I like to use the euphemism. I'm very fond of those, if you haven't noticed. That you need to figure out what kinds of things you want to be known for, and that is then therefore defined by what kinds of keywords you associate yourself with. So if you could kind of use the imagery of you want to get a big, nice, fluffy keyword blanket and wrap yourself up in it, and so being mindful of what kinds of things you want to be associated with. It's usually regarding what kind of work you do, what your role is, what your function is, and that kind of thing. And you share content that uses those hashtags, or you are posting things about that, or you're engaging people in different groups. So being mindful of kind of how you're curating your background and what you say on LinkedIn can help you really attract people by virtue of that organic process of the keywords, if that makes sense. This is Dawn. I'm done speaking.
I totally. Oh, Dawn. You saw my mic flashing there because I'm in total agreement with you here. And again, for those in the audience, what Dawn was basically saying is you become a thought leader, especially in the field that you're working with, when you're putting out content about your work and sharing tips and supporting others. So these are the kind of things that really then you will be identified as a thought leader, especially if you're putting that kind of content out consistently, because then I'm able to know that She's really an expert in her field. You know, Annette, Dawn, these are people that I would call thought leaders in the employability skills sectors, because they offer, you know, even on Clubhouse, they share tips. We talk about employability skills, we help job seekers, we do resume reviews, we give tips. So we are then known as thought leaders in our fields. And that isn't something that, you know, we just make up. This is what other people identify you as, because that is just part of your brand, because they regularly see you talk about what it is you do at work and what value you bring to your work, right? And again, you know, having a LinkedIn profile, and Annette has heard this one sentence time and time again, because I say it with your CVs and resumes. Having a LinkedIn profile that is fit for purpose is just your golden nugget, because like we always say, if you are active and consistent on LinkedIn, it's so important that you put your URL address on your CV or resume, because again, that could be the decision maker between people being called in for an interview, for example, especially when they've got loads and loads of candidates to choose for. Remember this: if a recruiter has 300 CVs or resumes in front of them and they have to narrow it down to the last 10, because usually out of 300 CVs, they might narrow it down to 10 good CVs that they could call 10 good candidates for interviews. That means they've got to get rid of 290 CVs or resumes. And again, there could be a decider where number 10 and 11, because there are now 11 really good candidates, but they still have to break it down to the last 10. It could, a decider could be that that 11th candidate has got a profile that is fit for purpose, that there is additional evidence to support their CV, that may be the deal maker in terms of them being called for an interview and one of the other 10 being rejected. That's how competitive the job market is. And that's why, with those people looking for work, those people who are in work, as well as entrepreneurs, that's why they use LinkedIn. We just, you know, we're not there on LinkedIn to go viral. That's not our purpose. For some people, that is their intention. And, you know, hashtag no judgment on those people. But let me tell you this: I put out content sometimes with less than 20 people engaging and with less 1,000 views. But in that same piece of content, I've probably generated X amount of money, because one of those very few people who have viewed or who have engaged on my post ends up being a potential client. That's what I'm bothered about. Okay, so the fact that I then put out a piece of content that generates hundreds and thousands of views, that is simply just an ego boost on LinkedIn. That's what that is. So again, this is what we mean by being a thought leader, by having a bit of a personality that goes with that, by sharing things that really resonate with your audience and your audience's audience. So, i.e., your connections. Remember, they also have connections that could be your potential employer, or your potential client. So, you've got to always be mindful of your audience when you're putting content out. So, I'm done speaking for now, Annette.
Oh, you know, I love what you were saying. And the thing is, too, if people didn't catch it, that works for job seekers as well. If you're looking for a new job, I know Stella and I both know people who have been wooed and hired by companies just based on the company seeing what they're doing on LinkedIn. So, you know, yes, for people like the three of us, that, you know, we have our own businesses and we're looking for clients, but the same strategies really work for everyone on LinkedIn. And you know, yes, I love that. I wish we had you know, the emojis or emocons on Clubhouse, because I was, of course, smiling when I hear you say fit for purpose. I think I must have heard it over 1,000 times, and it makes me smile every time because it reminds me of you. So, um, you know, it one of the things too with LinkedIn, and I love that you were talking about the numbers, because it's like anything else. It only takes one. It takes that one person or one hiring manager to find you, follow you. But one of the things that I'd like to just talk a little bit about for people in the audience who are not aware, or people listening to this on the replay, um, and it's connecting with people that you want to know, and that you want them to know you, because that old saying, it's all about who you know. It's really about who knows you. And one of the strategies that I know of is to follow people and engage with their posts and kind of get to know them. So, what other suggestions are there? Because I know that's just one of the ways. Are there?
I think we lost you, Annette. I missed the
Oh, I'm
conclusion of
sorry.
what.
My phone rang. I apologize. So the question is, what are some other ways beyond, kind of the obvious, to connect with people that you want to know, and that, you want to know you?
Well, I would suggest if you've identified some people that you're very interested in connecting with, an easy way to do it is just really look at their LinkedIn profile and find some areas of common ground. Perhaps it's a shared membership, or maybe you both like the same article, or maybe you have a common connection. There's all kinds of ways that you can build inroads to connecting to someone. It could be that you find an article that mentions them, and that's obviously catering to them a little bit, but everybody loves to be flattered. It's like, oh, Susie, I saw you were in this article. That you must be very excited. Congratulations, blah blah blah. And so then they'll react, and then you can react back, and then you can start a conversation. That's really what it's all about, is finding an opening bid for a conversation to start the connection and building it from there. This is Donna Dunn speaking.
Again, excellent way of doing that, Dawn. Another trick I use is this: when I'm looking to target a particular person, God, that sounds really stalkerish, but I don't mean it in that way. But when I'm looking to, to catch maybe a potential client's attention, and we're not connected, what I try to do, apart from checking out their profile and maybe engaging on their content, is also to go and see what other content they've engaged on. Because again, when I'm bringing something for something of value to a particular piece of content, and when I mean something of value, I don't mean I write down in comments, great share, thanks for sharing. I'm really coming in with an essay type comment, because again, it opens up a conversation with that particular person. So that's one way of doing it. And also with that comment, what I try and do with those sort of comments is to attract other people to go and like that comment, which they do, right? And I also target, so I go and look at exactly who has liked those comments, or that particular comment. And it's then an easier way to then engage with them. So again, it stops, it's, if I haven't got time to send them a personalized DM, because again, when you want to connect with people on LinkedIn, they always advise, or you need to personalize your DM messages to a new connection. Sometimes I genuinely haven't got the time, but if I've engaged with them either on their content or on other people's content within the conversation, I'm actually saying, oh, great conversation we've just had. I see we're not connected. I'm going to send you a connection request straight away. So that saves me a whole heap of time of having to then personalize a DM message. And I have generated leads by me just through comments, not even on my content, just by engaging on other people's content, by bringing value and catching certain people's attention, where they've then gone to check my profile out, connect with me, and boom, I'm signing a contract. So again, there are other ways of actually getting attention and connecting with people. But the bottom line is it's having meaningful conversations. And that's why I say, for those of you who are just putting great shares, thanks for sharing, you might as well not put anything, because it brings nothing to the post, and it's just wasting your time. Nobody's going to look you up by you saying thanks for sharing. And another red flag, when we see people write thanks for sharing, great share, great post, that genuinely does suggest that you are maybe in an engagement pod. And for those who don't know what an engagement pod is, an engagement pod is a group of people brought together to go on engage on each other's content, to play with the LinkedIn algorithm. That's what that is. So again, you are actually doing yourself a real disservice by actually putting comments out like great share, great post, thanks for sharing. Because to me, once I see that, there's a little red flag in my mind thinking, Annette, she's definitely come from an engagement pod. It's very, very telling. And, those of us who kind of know the system, know how LinkedIn works, we are very, very good at recognizing people who are in engagement pods, which, for the record, breaks LinkedIn's terms of service. So if you're in an engagement pod, what can I say? Be careful. Back to you,
No,
Annette.
that is fabulous. And one of the things that I learned, that's really just changed my experience on LinkedIn, is you have to think of it as being, human to human. I'm on there as a human. I'm talking to other humans. I'm not talking to, connections. They are other humans. And I love what you said about the great comment. And one of the phrases that I love, that Brenda Meller uses all the time, if you're at a networking event and someone comes over to you and they share some information with you, you don't say, "Oh, great thought," and walk away. And it's just, if you think about it as a human to human thing, it's much easier to not fall into that trap of leaving the comment. And I just want to mention to anyone who's listening that when you're talking about engaging with other people's content, if you go to their LinkedIn profile and just go and click on their activity, you can see where they've been commenting or posting. So it's not like you have to go in and scroll and scroll and scroll. If you click on their activity, you can see their posts, you can click and see their comments. And so it's very easy way to connect with people. So we're getting sort of close to the end, and I have to bow out a little bit earlier because I have to take one of our dogs to the vet. So any last thoughts that you'd like to share, and how people can reach you and where they can reach you? Why don't we start with Dawn, and we'll kind of work our way back to me.
Oh gosh, well, thanks, Annette. My name is Dawn Rasmussen. I am the president of Pathfinder Writing and Career Services. And my little tidbit of wisdom beyond what I've already shared is basically, you can't just expect people to engage with a flat profile. You have to add depth. And by adding depth, that means really looking at it as a breathing, living profile. And so that means, paying attention to it, adding things to it. And I've been quite frankly shamed a little bit today because I need to do more of it myself. So that's okay. Sometimes we need that little kick in the pants, as they say. And I just think that it is an amazing thing. I have met so many people on LinkedIn through just, interactions and whatnot. And then I've translated those into in real life connections. And it's just fabulous. I've gotten a lot of friends from this whole experience. So, obviously we're not in a friendship mode with LinkedIn. It's a business thing, but there's some amazing benefits if you really put some effort into it. I've been in the trade association world, and one of kind of our mantras is you get what you put into it. And that includes memberships. It can include your LinkedIn profile. If you just throw it up there and don't pay any attention to it, you're not going to get anything out of it. So if you're going to put something into it, you will reap the rewards, but it does require due diligence and being consistent about it. So that's it for me, Dawn, and I hope everybody has a great day. And over back to, I believe, Stella.
Thank you so much, Dawn. And I'm going to hold you accountable for LinkedIn now. You need to come and join us with the fun
Yep,
that is
yep, yep.
that is LinkedIn. And I'm Stella, and you can find me on LinkedIn. Basically, if I'm not on LinkedIn, I'm on Clubhouse in these kind of rooms. And then the odd time I'm looking for a bit of just relaxation and gossip, and I go to the trashy little Clubhouse rooms too. So I wouldn't say necessarily follow me on Clubhouse, because I take you all over the place on Clubhouse. And that's about it. Annette, again, thank you for having me on. Always lovely to be here with Dawn and to come and support you in your fabulous room.
I love that you said that. I got to get the names of some of those trashy clubhouse rooms from you. But, for all of those people who think, well, you can't really make connections on social media, I have known Dawn for, oh my goodness, over a decade. We met on Twitter when Twitter chats were all the rage. We met on Twitter. We became online friends. We have met in person when we've been in the same city and had dinner together. And so, while it seems sometimes distant to people that, oh, you're online, you don't really know people. Well, that's really not true, because even if you never meet them in person, you can become really, great friends as well as colleagues with people. So just never discount the power of social media. So thank you so much for joining us today, Stella and Dawn. It's always a pleasure to share the stage with you. And sorry, I need to cut out, a couple of minutes early today, but thank you so much for being here. We've had several people with us the entire hour, and we really, really appreciate you spending your time with us. And again, you can catch me in here. You can catch me on Clubhouse, connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to connect with you. So thank you, everyone, and have a great rest of your day.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.